is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Carlson Printing for all your printing needs. 508-548-7303 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303. Our email address is carlsonprinting@aol.com. Carlson Printing for all your printing needs.
Hello, welcome everyone. This is the Monday, December 10, 2018 Board of Selectmen's meeting. We're starting an open session with a Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is recognition.
Good evening. Just wanted to just give a real shout out to all the folks who made this weekend possible with all of the activities that went on, starting on Friday and going through, culminating with the parade yesterday. It takes really just an enormous number of volunteers and coordination, both at the town level with all of our services through DPW, police and fire. It certainly takes a lot of effort on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and all of the individuals on Main Street, the shops that stayed open, as well as just the regular people who volunteer to make sure that it's a great weekend for families, for visitors, and for the folks who live here. The parade was wonderful on Sunday, even in those freezing cold temperatures. It was just a really great event, and it's one of those weekends that makes Falmouth kind of a standout community. I think it's really one of the largest parades in southeastern Massachusetts. So for that tradition to go on for 55 years is really no small thing. It takes a lot of effort, and I think it shows that people appreciate the numbers. It's a great turnout on Sunday, and all of those, I just always admire the kids who march in the band and the other activities with, hardly any covering on because they have to play their instruments or do whatever they're doing, dance and everything. So it was just a great family event. So thanks to everyone who made that possible.
Terrific event. Sam?
I just want to give a special shout out to the municipal employees who come on that Sunday. It's not really an option for them, but police and fire and DPW that turned out and supported this event to make sure that it came off smoothly, and everything really did. It flowed. So thank you.
Chamber
to
of
all of them.
Commerce? I mean, just,
And the Chamber of Commerce, they weren't mentioned really, but they're the organizers of this event and did a fabulous job.
excellent. Any other announcements?
Madam Chair, there was a Steamship Authority meeting that we
Thank
were asked to pass along. I'll be happy to just comment on that. We understand from our steamship representative, Betsy Gladfelter, that next Monday, December 17th at 3:30 p.m., the Steamship Authority will be hosting a meeting with their management consultant to make a presentation on the results of that study by a consultant that has been publicized significantly recently, that whole process. The location of the meeting has not yet been determined, and so Betsy suggested that anyone who might be able to attend, if they'd consult the Steamship Authority website, that location would be confirmed. But the time is 3:30 next Monday, December 17th.
It's also going to be on the Enterprise.
Yes, good point, on this Friday's Enterprise as
Right.
well.
Any other announcements? Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. It's a 2-minute opportunity for folks to speak on something that's not on the agenda. Is there anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go straight to the interviews for the Route 28 Citizens Advisory Committee. The Selectmen are putting together a committee of 9 members. 6 will be at large, 1 Planning Board designee, 1 Bikeways Committee designee, 1 Disability Commission designee. Town Moderator and State Representative David Vieira shall serve as the non-voting ex officio member. We will conduct interviews today, and we will make appointments on the 17th. All the applications were due at 4:30 on Wednesday, December 5th. We have let's see, a dozen, 3, 6, looks like 14 or so candidates. What we're going to be doing so that we can get everyone interviewed on time today, and you're not here too late, is we're going to have about a 2-minute time for the interviews and the questions. I'm going to ask Doug to keep track of that timing just so we can move folks along. We'll be asking a couple questions. If you just start with your name and your precinct or your address and let us know why you're interested in the committee, and anything else you think might be important for us to know. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. We know it's difficult to interview for things in public, and so we really appreciate all of you coming and stepping up so we can get to know you a little bit, and so you can be part of this important project.
Could I ask one question
please.
before you start? Just for process, can you please remind me, do we have to have people disclose now whether or not they're in a butter and that they would need a waiver? I think we had talked about that. Okay, so if that's the other,
Please, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, we put it right on the application form
Yep.
to disclose whether or not they're a butter, and we ask them to fill out the disclosure right as part of this initial application process. So I think the thinking was, you do all the interviews today, and then when you are ready to make the appointment, you would make the appointment and at the same time consider accepting their disclosure.
So it'd be appropriate tonight to ask abutters to at least discuss that in a little bit of detail about their feeling that they can be.
It would be.
Okay, that's why I was asking. I just want to make sure
Yep.
folks knew what we were.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know who the three non-at-large appointments are yet?
No, I know from Bikeways, I don't think that they had, when we had their meeting, I don't know, if,
We received from the planning board
okay,
Charlotte Harris,
Okay.
and from Bikeways, we received
voted?
Ben, I've forgotten Ben's last name, I apologize. I don't know if we've heard from
Harden?
disability.
Ben
Harden.
Ben Harden, thank
Ben
you.
Harden
Great,
is
yep.
from Bikeways.
So two of the
Disabilities,
three,
we've not
anyway.
heard from.
I think not.
Disabilities hasn't met yet. They meet on the
Okay.
13th, so my guess is that Disabilities on the 13th of December at their meeting will
Make a
appoint
recommendation.
someone. Yep.
Great. Okay, so we'll be looking for 6, starting with Andy Dufresne. Would you step up, sir? Please, please. Welcome.
Thank you for this opportunity, Madam Chair. Adrian Dufresne, I'm Precinct 2, born in Falmouth, and I've always been interested in the mechanics of Falmouth, the aesthetics of Falmouth, and the progression of Falmouth. When I applied for this committee, there were several things that I had in interest, if this is what you want me to talk about.
It is.
And the disruption of a neighborhood, which bothers me. I'm not in a butter. I own property, but it's further away. But I do know a lot of the residents in the area that feel that there's been an impact proposal that will totally disrupt their lives over the last 75 years. So I do have a concern and would like to be part of the decision-making to assure at least that section of Falmouth, which I've seen tremendous amount of changes in my lifetime. I've watched the progression through T-Ticket, and we've made a lot of mistakes. We continue to make mistakes. And I hope this will not be another one, but I'd be more than glad to express myself if I'm on this committee of the sincerity of what Falmouth is all about and who we work for, which is the people of the town of Falmouth. I have been on the Finance Committee for 25 years, so the financial impact of this proposal is considerably. I was assured that there is a sidewalk in that area put in by the state a number of years ago. I was the one that picked up Mr. Rubisa when he fell in the hole and got the state to put the sidewalk in, so there is a sidewalk. But anyway, that's my reason for submitting an application.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Doug?
I guess a question I'll probably ask everyone. What are your feelings about optimism that there's going to be a compromise solution for what the state wants, what the town wants, and what the residents want?
Doug, as I understand it, this proposal originally started with the extension of a water main, which is a necessary project. In my years, especially on the Finance Committee, was to push good drinking water to every resident in the town of Falmouth. So the water proposal is what started this project. The expansion, the acceptance of state guidelines if you ask for something. I don't know is what we've asked for anything yet. I did watch 1 hour of the presentation at the high school, and not too happy with everything that I heard, but in answer to your question, if we put the water main in, that's already been approved. There's a sidewalk that's already been approved. So the results of accepting a multi-million-dollar project from the state, because if you do this, you have to comply with certain guidelines, but it's only for 1 or 2 miles. It doesn't accomplish anything, in my personal opinion. And again, I'd like to be at the meetings to see exactly what they're proposing and why would we disrupt that entire corridor through T-Ticket if it's not going to give us any relief of the traffic. See, I'm one of those guys that believes that 300 years ago we made a mistake and put the town of Falmouth in the southwest corner. And we had 44 square miles that we could have developed throughout the town. So unfortunately, there are 3 main streets. And now if we're going to start widening them, you know, North Falmouth has said no. A lot of other places have said no. Falmouth is kind of unique. We all love it. That's why you guys are up there, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very appreciated. Next is Jane Perry. Jane?
You're good, Jane.
You're almost there. Welcome.
Thank you. How does one follow, Mr. Dufresne? Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board, members of the public. For the record, I am Jane F. Perry, 37 Galleon Drive, Hatchville, Precinct 8. I rise this evening to hopefully get appointed to this committee. Why do I want to be on a transportation committee? 30 years ago, I was told I couldn't drive. So therefore, I learned how to use public transportation. I feel that my 30 years plus of gainful knowledge, experience, and passion about transportation and advocacy is a plus to this committee. I have served for 10 years on the Falmouth Transportation Management Commission and 4 years as vice chair. I was the disabled appointee, non-member voting member to the Cape Cod Regional Transit Advisory Authority, and also Falmouth representative to the Cape Cod Regional Transit Advisory Board for 3 years. I have attended many Cape Cod Metropolitan Organization meetings. I understand the process. I would like to thank Mr. McConaughey and Mr. Ray Jack, because on November 5th and November 19th was the first time in my tenure that they have given a complete timeline about process. I know the process. I was instrumental in doing a 3-year process working with Mr. George Calise and our former state representative, Mr. Thomas Gahir, who was executive director of the RTA. It took 3 years to get that light. We went through Region 5, Mr. Kent McCord, who is now Mass Highways, Pam Haskins, executive director of Region 5 Mass DOT, Department of Transportation. And then the famous light at Jones Road. It took me 28 years to push that pedestrian crosswalk light. And I've learned as I've gone along the way. The problem with the T-ticket light is it's not audible. As someone who is visually impaired and can tell you where every sidewalk, every crosswalk, every curb cut, probably 99.9% in this town is, learning as from a trained-oriented mobility instructor from the Mass Commission for the Blind and the Carroll Center for the Blind.
Thank you. We're into the questions section now.
Can I continue to the question that Mr. Jones is going to ask?
Sure, that'll save
Okay.
time.
Solutions. This is a problem that we need to fix. I think it really needs to start from the 1/8 of a mile of phase 1 all the way down to the end. I think we're going to go too fast. If you're looking at a 25% hearing in April, I think we need to go from a 0 to a 10% hearing like we did at the intersection. And some of the things I think that should be implemented is that a sidewalk, not a 6-foot sidewalk, I don't know where Mass DOT came upon that, I've never heard of that in my entire life. We need to follow CMR 521, which is the Architectural Access Board, which doesn't tell about bike lanes, but we can compromise and have a 3-foot sidewalk, which is the minimum, and a 2-foot bike lane, along all the way from Sandwich Road to Oxbow. We need to look and have the Cape Cod RTA to have a bus shelter, which our selectman, Doug Jones, has built closer to the road,
Doug
the one
Brown.
at Tatticat Apartments, does not work.
Doug Brown, though.
Excuse me?
Doug Brown built that, not,
Doug Brown.
I said Doug Brown, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get everything in 2 minutes.
That's okay, we got about 20 seconds left.
Okay. So anyways, and we need to have bus shelters, we need to have a demand response or a crosswalk at Cedar Meadows across there. We need to have a bike lane and a sidewalk on both sides of the road, not a multimodal, because bicycles don't understand about pedestrians. It's a sandwich road, I really don't like roundabouts, and we haven't really seen what's happening on Davis Straits. And I think that we need to start this committee in January 5th, have it on Saturdays, so that people are fresh, don't have to think about going to work the next day or getting family commitments involved, have a fresh start, bring coffee and some goodies, and get working.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you very much for your time. Any other questions? I'd be happy to entertain any other questions.
Appreciate that. Doug?
Just wanted to clarify that this is really only for Section 3. We voted to let the DPW deal directly with Section 1 and 2.
I understand that. However, we need to look at it as a complete streets situation. Nobody understands about complete streets. And just because it's the business stakeholders, the planning board is doing a new business development along Davis Straits. And it's our town. It's the citizens' town of this town. It's not just the people that have businesses there. You need a bike lane. You need to have Davis Straits, Spring Bars Road and Dillingham Road. We haven't seen what that's going to look like yet. We haven't seen what the Scranton Avenue intersection is going to look like.
Thank you, we could go on and on,
Thank you,
but we
that's
have
right.
so many
Thank you
people.
very much. Any other questions that I can
That's
answer?
good. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you very much, and I look for
Jerry
a positive
Patamas.
appointment to this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you for standing up, Jane, appreciate it. Jerry?
Hi, I'm Jerry Patamas, Precinct 2. I'm not in a butter. You have my credentials in front of you. I'm either infamous or notorious, one or the other. But I am what I am. I wanted to get on the committee because I think it's important, transportation, and someone told me once before that if you want to predict the future, you invent it today. And I think improving that whole length of road, based on the facts Ray Jack gave and just my other observations, I think we need the improvements. As to if I think a solution can be arrived at, I think to get a consensus, and if you want a consensus, I think the bicycle path and the abutters need to agree on a shorter width. And I'm not sure, but I think if it's reasonable, the state template could be adjusted. I don't think they realize what they're doing. So I don't think that's a problem. I think the problem is getting folks to compromise, to say, yes, we want it. I guess, no, you don't want it, but that'd be an important question to ask everybody. Are you willing to compromise? And if not, what are you doing here? One thing I kept on asking people, and it was brought up, and it'd probably get into the weeds at the committee meeting, that possibly you should have more handicap parking on Main Street. A proprietor on Main Street brought it up to me. I went up and down, and I noticed it. Other than that, fire away, as they say in the service.
Great. Doug?
he answered the question within his.
Anyone else? I thought so.
No, I think Jerry's made a pretty good, clear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very appreciated.
Do we have to be here next week?
You do not.
Thank you.
Not. Mark Finneran, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. Why do I want to be on this committee? Same reason I'm here every week. Anything Falmouth interests me. I think I do a fairly good job of representing people's interests, talking with the public. I also think that sometimes we go into things too fast, and I think this is one of those occasions. From what I heard at the previous meetings, the roundabout, which is supposedly already decided or whatever, was not favored by anyone. I think it's incumbent upon me, whether I'm appointed to this committee or not, to pay attention to what goes on in the design of this aspect of it anyway. And as I say, I think this committee should be broader, and it should have more say on the Main Street section. And the example I gave of the roundabout is the reason why. Other than that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Do you have hope that there's a possibility of compromise in the solution?
Well, there has to be. And I'm sure there will be. And I, again, want to be on this committee because I want the citizens of this town to be as happy with the compromise as you behind the desk are and the other entities involved. And that's the reason why I'm here every week, basically, in a nutshell.
Can you give an example of when in the past you've been able to get opposing sides together on an issue?
I think anytime anybody introduces relative and thoughtful information, it leads to that outcome. And you know, I mean, I've passed many town meeting articles that maybe weren't favored in the beginning, but I mean, that's what I strive to do. Again, that's why I'm here every week. Sometimes I think the individual taxpayer in this town goes a little bit unrepresented, and shouldn't be that way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just so that we know, because we have your application, but just so folks who are watching or here know, are you an abutter or not an abutter?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next is Beverly Williams. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm a lifelong resident of Falmouth and T-Ticket. I've raised 3 children here and went to the Falmouth schools. My father was a 30-year member of the Falmouth Fire Department. And I am an abutter since my father's passing. I have inherited the family home on T-Ticket Highway. I walked to school and biked to stores on the same sidewalks as a child growing up in that area. So I have an interest in improving those sidewalks and perhaps making a bike lane, but I don't believe in the proposed project of having such wide sidewalks and planting areas and driving areas. I think the proposed project will benefit all Falmouth residents to improve the sidewalks and the bike lanes, perhaps on one side of the road. And then I would like to see that the properties are preserved and the trees are maintained for the rural atmosphere and the small town feel of the village. I was employed for 30 years at a medical office. I have people skills, I have organizational skills, I pay attention to details, and I've been secretary of bowling leagues and other various organizations during my lifetime.
Thank you. Questions?
Well, I think you've pretty much covered the things I was going to ask, and your application was very complete, so I think I know.
And are you hopeful that there's a compromise solution out there?
I believe there should be a compromise, and I believe that public input is vital to determine the details that will be beneficial to all the residents for this roadway project.
And do you feel that you can be removed from your financial interest as you make a decision concerning this property, this road?
I believe I can be objective.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Henry DeGiorgio.
I'll probably only take 30 seconds.
Welcome.
My name is Henry DeGiorgio. I have property on 86 Oak Street. I've owned that property since 1991, I guess. I guess the reason why I volunteered for the committee is I looked at the note that was out there, and the objective was to look at the designs, review all the designs, and get people's inputs, okay? and then present back to the committees, or back to the selectmen in April, a solution, okay, to move forward. That, to me, was a very clear objective on this project. I feel that I have really good management skills. I have the ability to go in and look at a problem, analyze, and work with people to come to a solution. And that's it. That's my 30 seconds. So if you have any questions,
I have a question.
go ahead.
Please, Doug.
Have you had any kind of committee experience?
None at all. None.
Okay.
I've been retired for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready to move to Falmouth
Mhm.
permanently. And I care about what happens, the infrastructure, how the infrastructure changes, how it affects the people that live around the community.
Were there
So-
any type of working groups in your
Oh,
professional
yeah.
career?
I mean, I was, in my career, yes. I was a
Mhm.
project manager. And delivered sizable IT projects, information technology projects.
Okay.
So major consolidation projects.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Doug?
How do you feel about the chance there being a compromise for this?
I don't see any
Potential
issue with
impasse.
that at all, from a personal point of view. I think we need to do what's best for the town and the people in that area, and that's my feeling. So, I don't have any biases at this point. I haven't looked at any plans, so.
Excellent. You're winning on time, too. Thank you very much. Welcome. Next, Jim Marshall, please.
Evening. Thanks
Evening.
for having me. Jim Marshall, 467 T-Ticket Highway. I am in a butter. I want to join this committee because, as you know, I've been following this right from the beginning day in June when it was announced what the state had on their plans. And I grew up in T-Ticket. I was born in Falmouth. I spent 35 years in the fire department. I was a manager as a captain, retired now. But when I saw the plans of what the state had drawn up on paper, it might look good on paper, but when in reality it's just such a big project and it's going to impact so many homes in the area. And I'm true that I'd like to see this community stay as charming as it is now. And I just feel in at least the first two sections are business zone, but the last section is a lot of residential. And it still has some charm to it. It is in dire need of help, though. And I agree the sidewalks need to be improved. We need to take care of the bike people. They have to be ADA compliant. As for compromise, I believe it can be done. Since June, I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people and asked their opinions, and they all seem to be pretty much in agreement that this project was way too big on scale, but we do need improvements. So I talk a lot about a wider sidewalk or a bike path, and everybody I talk to seems to be in agreement. So I think it's not going to be that hard of an issue. There's going to be people that are going to be against everything. There's going to be people that want it big and better, but I think compromise is going to be fairly easy on this one. And I think we can do something nice in T-Ticket, plant some nice trees, have a nice bike lane, sidewalk, so it can accommodate everyone. And that's it.
I guess on the compromise issue, a compromise that does not involve the state may involve the local community come forward saying, okay, it's going to come all to the cost of the town with no benefit from the state, but that may be what we want. We'll then need to have people come forward and say, let's push for it to get done and pay for it. But and do you feel that you can separate your financial benefit or interest from decisions concerning this?
Well, I live in the house that my great-grandparents lived in since the 1880s, and I'm going to die in that house, so I'm not selling it. So if it goes up and down in value, it doesn't matter to me because I'm going to die there.
Hopefully not soon, Jim. Hopefully not until the work
If
of
my
this
kids
committee's
complain
done.
about it, that's too bad.
Exactly. Any other questions for Jim?
I think he just answered mine.
No? I'm good.
Thank you very much. Allison Leshin, please. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Allison Leshin, Precinct 2. I am normally a very avid biker, not at the moment, but, I would say advocate for making safe bike accommodations for anybody who wants to bike, whether it's for fitness and recreation, or kids biking to school, or J1 workers in the summer getting to work as their only viable mode, or people who live in East Falmouth, work in Woods Hole, wanting to commute, anybody. However, I also really understand the T-ticket people's concern about preserving the character, particularly of that nice little residential section. And I totally think that a compromise is possible. Even though I am a big biking advocate, I agree that I think the MassDOT requirements are overkill, and that we can, if they will allow us to scale those back, I think that we can have safe, adequate accommodations for bike, pedestrian, wheelchair, strollers, et cetera, through that section without too much, if any, compromise of the character of that neighborhood. And that would be my goal as part of this committee.
Great. Questions?
And you are not a butter.
I'm not in a butter, no.
Did you hurt your leg biking?
No, well.
Good.
Gradually.
Good.
New knee replacement.
Did you trip on a faulty sidewalk?
That's how I did it 30 years ago and led to this.
Anyway, thank you for volunteering. We're all set.
Any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks so much. John Sylvia Senior.
You're in trouble.
Welcome.
Actually, consideration. I live in East Falmouth, Carrot Shop Road. 68 years I've lived in town, worked in town 53 years. So I have extensive knowledge of the roads. In the past, I've even had contracts with the town as a subcontractor, snow plowing, so extensive construction background. But very concerned in the appearance of the town of Falmouth. I feel that people come to the Cape, especially Falmouth, they want to see Falmouth. They don't want to see something like Brockton. So I think with the committee, I think we can come up with a compromise and make a solution that would look good for the town, and also will help out the people and the businesses that are on the way there. I think this was kind of shoved down our throat real quick here, and I think some time needs to be taken to plan this out right. Kind of like if you went to a place to buy a new car and they tell you, this is the car you need to buy right here. Don't worry about the price, but you got to buy this car. No, don't worry about the color, but buy this car. So that's what this job is like right now. It's just a lot of people have a sour taste in their mouth that it's getting shoved right at them. So that's all. I didn't take too many seconds, did I?
You're good. Any questions?
No.
No, I think he answered that.
I got one. I didn't really get it from your description. Do you feel that there are improvements needed on this section?
Definitely.
Okay.
But we don't need a superhighway.
Okay.
You know, we definitely need to take care of the bicycles. We definitely need to take care of the pedestrians and the handicap.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it can be done without the extent that this major plan is talking about.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
And not in a butter.
Not in a butter, correct.
No.
Yep.
Thank you.
Greg Berkeley. Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Greg Berkeley. I live at 49 Redlands Road. I'm a graduate civil engineer. Building roads is what I've done all my life. I thought I might have something to offer. This seems like a bit of a can of worms. I've dealt a lot with MassDOT, District 5. I've done multitude of projects. I assume that you've got a copy of my resume.
We do.
Yep.
If you want to talk finance, I can't help you. You want to talk about traveling Europe, I can't help you. You want to build roads, I can help you.
That was quite a resume. Very interested to read some of the projects you've worked on.
41
Many
years.
road projects as well.
Yeah, a lot of road work. When I worked with P.J. Keating, I was the construction operations manager and had about $80 million worth of work going on across the whole state that I was responsible for, up to and including the Route 28 project down at the Falmouth line. We repaved and did all the drainage work up to the Bourne Bridge about 3 years ago.
What kind of experience have you had in working with community committees?
Does Falmouth Youth Hockey count? Because I'll tell you, that's as political as it gets, I gotta tell you. I was involved with Falmouth Youth Hockey for many, many years. I've been down here since 1983, and all 4 of my kids 2 of the boys played hockey, the 2 girls figure skated, one of my girls played hockey, so I kind of like had 5 kids. And lived at the rink, so if that counts, that might be worth something, I don't know.
I think it's worth something.
And I did work with Andy's daughter, with Together We Can, back in the day, which was a lot of fun.
Good.
Thanks for that, Doug.
And you don't feel you've had enough work with highways? You're still interested in
Well,
doing
it's
some
kind of
more?
coming at it from a different perspective now, which is kind of unique. And what I do now, I'm not in contracting for the last year. I've kind of went what I call to the dark side. I'm on the engineering end, not the construction side. And now I'm doing kind of what you're looking for. I do constructability reviews, ICE, independent cost estimates. So it's, I review plans, specifications. And again, I know the MassDOT specifications inside and out. I've been working with them since 1983. So when I moved down here in '83, I came to work for Lawrence Lynch and kind of got thrown right into the fire with that. And I started from the ground and worked my way up.
So of all people, you may be able to say, is there a compromise available?
Oh, without question, there's always a compromise. But I like the idea that you kind of threw out. You may want to tell MassDOT to take a hike and we design it the way that the town wants it, and we fund it. So you're going to get what you pay for, and you're going to get what you want. But if there's an opportunity to use funds from MassDOT, absolutely, let's do it. But I don't think having them shove their plans and specifications down our throat just to appease them is not necessarily the way to go, just for the sake of the almighty dollar.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug.
So from what you've heard so far about our compromise idea, how hopeful are you that we might be successful in getting approval from them and funding? Any ideas?
I don't. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not that well versed. I'm kind of walking into this kind of naive. I saw a lot of this and heard a lot of the scuttlebutt. But for me to tell you that I know exactly what the proposed plans and specifications are and such, I don't. So which is kind of a good
There are
thing.
none. It's just wondering how much conversation you'd
Yeah.
kind of.
No, nothing yet.
It would be totally speculative, but.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. It's really
Thanks very
helpful.
much.
Thank you.
Rachel Howard. Good evening.
My name is Rachel Howard, and I live at 391 T-Ticket Highway. I am an abutter. I'm also the mother of a 3-year-old who walks to T-Ticket Elementary every single day, so we use the sidewalks in whatever condition they might be. I'm also the wife of a bicyclist who uses the sidewalks because riding on the highway is not safe with the 18-wheelers. I come from a long background of management, so I'm used to working on committees with varying structures within a company, also working with cities in order to approve plans, contractors to approve plans for new buildings. That's what I bring to the table.
Excellent. What's the talk at school about the potential project and how it's going to affect kids?
There really hasn't been much, but the street right behind us, Pearl Lane, has another set of 3-year-olds and children and kids who go to school. And we all use the sidewalks to walk to Walmart in the summertime, and we all take the sidewalks down to the beach, or we go to see the 4th of July fireworks. We all walk on the sidewalks, so we are concerned about the condition of them. And of course, we see the J1 students going by in the summertime, and my husband has actually offered rides to several of them because they don't really want to be riding in the streets right now, so.
Questions?
Hope for compromise?
Absolutely. I don't see how we can move forward as a city or, without compromise. And I think we all want the sidewalks to improve. We all want bicyclists to be safe. We may not necessarily take state funds to do it, but I think there's a way to make that happen as well, as long as we look forward to making the city, a better place than it is now. But that's one of the reasons we moved here, is the charm, the small town feel. We bought a house instead of just renting. We're in the military, because we have, designs on staying and maybe retiring here because we loved it so much. So we don't want to lose that feel.
And do you feel you can separate your personal interest in your property and financially with the whole project design?
Absolutely.
Nice job. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Next, we have Mary Barry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mary Barry, Precinct 2. I am not an abutter, and I am very optimistic that compromise is always something that can be attained. I think that I bring to the table a 30-year career at the federal government. Almost everything I did involved compromise. Most of the things that I had to do involved task forces, committees, working with multiple agencies that had differing views on things. I did work on something that was transportation related in a county, Fairfax County in Virginia. It was over a 3-year period, and we looked at where a metro station was going to come into the community and all of the repercussions that it might have, and having to plan not only zoning, but also all of the things having to do with transportation, densities, and everything. And it was a 20-year plan. And what I bring to the table basically is independence and objectivity. I listen to people, I listen to views of people, and try to reach conclusions and recommendations to bring forward to people who will make the ultimate decision. So that's it.
Thank you. Questions?
Just to clarify, you are not in a butter?
No, I am not in a butter, and compromise is always something that's attainable.
Thank you very much. Michael Pavin.
Hi, Michael Pavon, St.
Pavon.
Mark's Road. I live about a half mile off of T-Ticket Highway, so I'm not in the butter. I moved to Falmouth in 2002 after about 30 years in transportation as a driver, dispatcher, supervisor, and school bus driver instructor. I was involved with taxis, buses, school buses, and trucks. I served in Newton in the 80s on a advisory committee to redesign a portion of Route 30 Commonwealth Avenue in the Auburndale section of Newton. When I came to Falmouth, I worked in construction, which involved plans and following plans and often revising the plans too. I've done some research by traveling and looking at all of 6A and 28 on the Cape and seeing what other towns have done. Most of both roads have no sidewalks. Sometimes there's one sidewalk, occasionally there's a sidewalk on both sides. The only bike lanes are in our 2 redesigned intersections in Falmouth. There are a couple of bike charons in Orleans. I do see a number of ADA compliant crosswalks in Brewster, Orleans, Chatham, Dennis, and Barnstable. So it would appear to me they have done some redesign and gotten state funding to do it. I think we need to compromise and come to a plan of not how we want to widen the road, but how we want to reconstruct it after our water main replacement project. In other words, to rehabilitate it, to figure out how we want it to handle our vehicle traffic, our pedestrians, our bicycles, utilities, trees, and respect the homes that are along there. I think we can come to a good compromise. Since this committee is going to deal with mainly Section 3, where the road gets darker and faster speeds, I think I favor a shared use path wide enough so that it's comfortable for both pedestrians and bicycles above the curb off the street there. And the only place that exists now, there's about a mile or so approaching Hyannis on one side of the road. I think we can come to a compromise looking at what's there, respecting our trees, considering, if not taking down the utilities now, but putting in a conduit so that they can move there later on without destroying the road to do it. Perhaps Open Cape might get a jump start in them providing an alternate internet service by getting in their fiber optic lines in during the construction here. I am a casual bicyclist now. I was an avid bicyclist at one time when many years ago I worked at a bike shop. And
Perfect
whatever else I
timing.
can tell you.
Perfect. Questions?
I like your comment about the utilities.
That wasn't a question, Doug. Anyone
I like your
else?
question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Alves, please. Welcome.
Good evening, Board, Madam, ladies and men. My name is John Alvis. I live at 570 T-Ticket Highway. We have a number of acres there. I've been basically in business 55 years at that address. I've seen a lot of changes on T-Ticket Highway as I planned and developed the Clippership Apartments. We took surveys of traffic and so forth. And a number of years ago, a survey came up with about 32,000 cars and trucks a day that pass our abode. I am a direct abutter of this highway. I've seen women walking down with carriages in the middle of it because of no sidewalks. I've seen my boys go on skateboards down the middle of it when they were at home. And traffic has increased and speeds have increased on this small road after a number of years. I've been a town meeting member for about 44 years. And that's about all I can say is that I'm concerned about Falmouth and have been because we were the first business besides a doctor on Davis Straits years ago. And that's quite a time when across the street we had people feeding their cows. And then I had cows too on T-Ticket Highway and horses. However, I feel that we need more communication in the town between people. And I think this is the only way that I could get any ideas across of what's happened on T-Ticket Highway. And in the next 20 years, I'm sure that from Mira Vista all the way past Falmouth Lumber will be all business anyway. I won't be here, but maybe we can see what we can do now. And with a board and people who are interested in this road, as Captain Marshall and myself, and where a lot of business is already there. And of course, you have the state with their sober houses and so forth, which doesn't appeal to many people. That's about all I can say.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Alves?
Just, do you feel like there are improvements needed on that stretch of road?
What was that?
Do you feel like there are improvements needed on that stretch of road?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that we don't want to get underground utilities is a must in today's market. The cutting of trees, as complaints that I've received as a town meeting member, because a lot of people come to me because I'm on the board, they're worried about the tree cutting to widening this road. And there'll be a lot of disruptions pertaining to the road in its widening process. And that's about all I have to say.
You are listed as an abutter.
Butters, yeah, I have the Clippership Farms.
Right. We didn't get a conflict of interest disclosure form from you, and it's a requirement that we have that form to be able to consider you for this committee. I'm not sure how we try to correct that, but
I think the form is there, it just wasn't completely,
What,
Yeah.
well, he's checked off that he's not submitting it.
but he actually has submitted at least a piece of it here, but it doesn't include your name on it.
We're missing a form. We'll give it to you to fill out. If you hand it in to the office, then we'll include your application with the rest.
So I should go and get this other piece of paper at the Selectman's office?
I think I might have an extra one right here. It's just 2 pages, right?
Yes.
There you go.
And beside that,
Otherwise, you're good.
I was a veteran for over 20 years, so
Thank you.
there's a lot of planning that has gone in my life
Thank you
to
very
stay
much.
alive. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of our interviews. We're going to make a decision next week. You can come if you like. There's not a requirement to come. You can watch it if you like. We thank you very much. The town really runs on its volunteers. This is a very important committee that you would really give unique perspective to. And our Board of Selectmen gives great weight to input we get from the community generally, and particularly committees. So thank you all for coming.
Can I just
Please.
So it is going to be a very difficult decision for us as a board to have 14 people have applied for this for 6 positions. I'm really impressed with the diversity of interest and background that we're getting in this committee, and I'm very confident that we will have a committee that will be able to come up with a plan that can move forward, because we have such interest and such enthusiasm and knowledge that we'll be able to piece together and come forward. And so I think it's fantastic. I have no idea how we're going to wrestle with this, but really appreciation is huge that you've come forward.
Megan.
And just one other piece to add to Doug's comment. I just hope whomever is finally selected, that everyone who is in this room continues to participate, because it will be part of the reason why we created this type of committee, is so that the meetings are public and that they have an agenda and that people can come and share their thoughts and their concerns. And from this list, whoever's ultimately chosen, I hope that you're looking around and seeing the other names on this list, and as a committee, reaching out to some of these individuals who ultimately aren't one of the 6, because everybody here tonight, just in what we've heard in the 2 minutes that they've been up, sharing their thoughts, have really, I think, moved the conversation along in a way that's really helpful. So hopefully, everybody here will continue to be part of the conversation, however that board is ultimately formed.
Thank you. We'll give you a second to leave if you like. We do have other interesting things to talk about, though.
That's a minute.
Thank you for coming. So the next item on the agenda is a discussion of a potential response to the Charter Review Committee, particular with respect to questions relating to plans and planning roles and responsibilities. Part of the Charter Review Committee, they're looking at a diverse amount of people in town, committees. They're looking at folks who have particular positions in town. They're looking at citizen input. And I just thought it would be interesting. I know most of the board, if not all of the board, has already given their individual views. And I just wanted to put before the board whether the individual views would be sufficient, or if we wanted to add sort of a board response to the general questions that the Charter Review Committee has raised, or whether, you know, some of the responses, for example, there were questions related to plans and planning roles and responsibilities. That might be another topic that we could look at.
I actually be much more comfortable with the individual responses than as a board trying to almost rehash what they're gonna be doing and trying to synthesize what we think they wanna hear, or even in response to what the planning board and the plans are. I'm more comfortable with having them do their job than us trying to copy it.
Okay, so that's one, skip the agenda item?
Well, I agree with that. And in fact, they asked me to consider doing some rewriting as a draft for them. And in the end, I came to that conclusion. I said, you know, I'm not hearing all the inputs. And I really think that is your job, is to synthesize those things, make sense out of it, and come up with a recommendation. So I'm right on board with you, Doug.
Likewise, I agree.
Likewise?
I also think it's very unwieldy if we try to, as a board, comment when individuals have already commented it. I'm not sure how we don't lose some of the individual value of, you know, thoughts and suggestions within that process.
And I might say that some of the, you know, areas that I thought needed to be looked at, they were already sensitive to. So I think, you know, they're getting it from multiple sources, and really they're in the best position to kind of figure out maybe a path to recommend to town meeting and to the residents.
Great, Doug?
I think, though, it's a tough one. I agree with your points about, you know, the individual comments should stand, but at the same time, they seem to be raising a couple of newer comments here about the administering the local comprehensive plan, and if there should be any kind of mechanism to trigger that, you know, required viewing of it at, you know, different times. So maybe we could follow up with more comments of our own, specifically targeting these rounds of questions, because I didn't get all these questions during my interview. I'm not sure we all got the same questions, but
That's one of the
maybe some more
reasons I
comments.
wanted to share it with the board. And in fact, Peter Clark suggested, you know, do you want this to be the board? Do you want it to be individual? And I said, well, I'll ask the board.
But I think Doug's point is great. If there's something there that folks didn't weigh in on, then they can, but nothing prohibits us from doing so, but then all of our separate comments still stand.
Yep, you can just ask for a Word copy of this and go ahead and send it right in.
There really is no enforcement or really mandate that you review the local comprehensive plan, or even our selectmen's strategic planning. Maybe there should be. I don't know exactly how that would be done, but it's more food for thought for them.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
That's okay. All right.
I need to cough over here.
The next item on the agenda would be individual selectmen reports. Doug?
Well, I attended the Water Quality Management Committee this week. It was a very interesting discussion, first about the Oyster Pond TMDL Compliance Management Plan. They are drafting response to the state of how they could potentially manage the nitrogen loading in Oyster Pond. Doesn't mean that they would use IAs, but they're just throwing out some suggestions of how it might be done using, you know, innovative alternative septics. And one thing that John Waterbury brought up was the fact that if we are using treatment down to 10 milligrams of nitrogen or less, then maybe now we could consider going back to the old-fashioned septic pit rather than the field. The fields are very expensive, a lot of components, and if we're going to spend a lot more money on the treatment, and now the effluent is so clean, maybe a pit would be an option. Interestingly, Brian House just happened to be there to talk about his Mill Pond SMAS report, and he commented that that might introduce a phosphorus problem in other areas, so it's a very deep conversation. But if they were going to use these near fresh water, maybe the pit won't work, and they might need to use what's called green sand around the pit, or maybe the field would still be required. But it's great that they're working on these ways to improve the management of it and keep the costs down, because, you know, we know they're expensive, and the management and the maintenance of them is a problem, so they're trying to get away from that problem. With regard to the Mill Pond, Brian Howes and Amber Unruh reiterated their report, and they presented their options, and Eric had given a better overview of his ideas. Now he thinks that the harvester probably will fit if we can get it in there, maybe by the library, or maybe if another piece of property might work better, we'll try that. And he is pretty far along in the planning of it. It seems like it's going to be possible. They're going to have to decide what department will be the procurement department, because we're going to have an agreement with Brewster if we're going to use their equipment. So that's being drafted now, and maybe probably come to us, I guess, or maybe, I don't know if the water quality will manage it all or send it to us for a stamp.
Well, I have to just remark on that report, to take it back a little bit in history, that it really was the Village Association and the historical reports of a lot of the folks in the neighborhood that talked about and raised the Mill Pond problem to the level of intervention that it's gotten. And Eric was at the meeting, I was at the meeting, of course, you were chairing the meeting probably. And this project was conceived, it was really born at the Village Association meeting, and now it's getting done. So another good, effective way of village associations to get things done in their neighborhood and for the town. And it's also going to be a good template for moving forward and using the weed machine to sort of take the carbon material out and see if that has an effect on the nitrogen.
Right, and it's going to probably take a few years to get all these actions implemented, but we're off to a good start, and it's a really positive project.
Thanks, Doug.
Was this the meeting in which they were also talking about the fertilizer bylaw, the one that Nantucket has, which has even more teeth to it than ours? I saw this on TV recently. I'm not sure.
I don't remember that. I couldn't stay for the whole meeting because I had to get back to work. I just wanted to get the oyster pond and the mill pond part, so they may have taken that up in the end of the meeting.
If it isn't something I think we should take up, that right now we have a really good fertilizer bylaw that most people in town don't know about. And even the local hardware stores are selling fertilizer during the time of the year when it's actually not allowed to be put out there. And I'm not sure how we can get the word out both to the homeowners and to the companies. Selling fertilizer in March, you need to let them know, fine, you can buy it, but you aren't allowed in town to put fertilizer on your lawn then.
Yeah.
And that we have a very well-written law that is going to reduce the amount of nitrogen gets in, or phosphorus also gets in, through chemical means.
It's a tricky one, and the Falmouth Water Stewards has in the past partnered with the water department actually in their mailing of the bills and put a little flyer, informational flyer, which was great partnership. But unfortunately these days, everybody, like the gas company, electric company, they all have little flyers, and everybody just throws them away. So it wasn't as good of a effect as we had hoped. We might need a separate mailing, so those are expensive though. I also attended the Waterways Committee, and Greg Frazier was concerned, and he remains concerned about the constant breakdowns. There's two barges right now, and the new one has been problematic since it began. Now they're back using the old one, and it's hit or miss back and forth between.
Dredges, you mean?
Dredges, excuse me. And they're back and forth between using the two with one crew, and they keep updating Greg Frazier about the schedule, and it's not looking good. This year, we're slated to be last after Truro and Provincetown, and we've got that channel in Eel River, and they're sending signals as if that it's not likely that we're gonna get dredged. You know, we're not saying we're not yet, but it's not, we'd like them to be a little more hopeful at this point. So I think we need to maybe see if the county commissioners can appropriate some funding for a second crew, and maybe look into the dredging issue a little more. Because, you know, it's always a problem, and we're always behind. It's a huge undertaking to have our own dredge. I had advocated for it when I first started paying attention to this issue, but I think it's probably too much. I think we just need to fix what we have.
In the meantime, I'm the Assembly of Delegates representative for Falmouth. I will raise that with the county this week or next week.
I bet if we had our own, we could probably lease it out to some of the neighboring towns and cut the cost significantly. If there's none available.
Probably, but as I've learned, that there's maintenance that goes on year-round, and you only get to use it a very short window of time. You gotta train a crew, and so they would have to be a dual-purpose crew that would work on other things, and they would have to have a hoisting license, and I don't know if that takes them away from critical work in the winter, fixing other things. I don't know what's involved with it, but everybody that I talk to, including the people on the Waterways Committee, say it's a big undertaking to have your own dredge, so.
If I might say, I think we have to look at the other side. Right now, one of the few coastal resiliency measures we have available to us is beach nourishment.
Yeah.
And it may be that what we're doing is during the winter months is stocking up the sand and then putting it on beaches in the summer, so we might be able to
This might
use
be a
that same
good-
crew.
Good topic for an agenda
Yeah.
item, because we're just doing reports now, but,
Right.
Yeah.
great, thank you. Sam?
I was away all week except for the parade, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's always a fun time, and thank goodness the weather was very cooperative this year, so great time.
Megan?
The bikeways, I think we'll have a further, I won't steal the thunder from whoever's going to announce that on the agenda, but I went to bikeways, and I had to leave to go to, I have another committee that meets at the same time, but they were, choosing their representative for this committee, and they were very positive, had some great conversation around some suggestions they'll have for this particular, for the Route 28 widening project. And so, other than that, most of my committee meetings are coming up. And one thing, just in general, I know generally we do it after the elections, but I think it might be helpful when we reassign committees to really look at, or have a mechanism for when they really all meet. Mine have changed, so they really are all on the same days now, pretty much. So we've talked in the past about looking at how that liaison relationship works, but something we might want to consider for a future agenda is how that process continues to work and what committees are looking for from their liaison, and a better way to maybe make that that relationship more, I don't know, user-friendly for everybody.
Maybe negotiate some trades.
Exactly, that's what I'm,
Good idea.
Yeah.
Doug?
Almost said, thank you.
Town managers report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Just a couple items. Just a reminder that your final business meeting of 2018 is set for next Monday, December 17th, right here at 7 p.m. At the moment, we do not have an executive session, so it'll be 7 p.m. unless that changes. And also, my compliments and congratulations to everyone involved in the, as has been noted, the recently completed Holiday in the Sea, Holidays by the Sea weekend, which is including the parade, including the Saturday evening tree lighting and all the tradition that goes with that. It's really a cherished, the whole process, the whole weekend is a much cherished element, starting with, more recently, the caroling at the Knobska Light, right on through to the parade on Sunday, and incredible cooperation from the merchants, Chamber of Commerce, police, fire, public works, and it was my pleasure to join the Board of Selectmen walking in the parade on Sunday as per usual. So my thanks and compliments to all, and we'll look forward to bringing the business portion of the Selectmen's meeting to closure a week from tonight. And my work continues on the FY 2020 budget that I'll be bringing to members of the board, as I have in the past, just shortly before the Christmas holiday. And it is technically due by charter January 1. And we have two meetings in consecutive weeks in January to present the budget and to ask for the Selectmen's consideration for adoption and transmission to Finance Committee. So that is all well underway, including my budget message, and look forward to bringing that to closure, and happy to be of service. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson-Staub?
Did we want to do the crosswalk update?
I think that's last.
I'm going to call
Oh,
up.
that's,
Yeah.
Yep.
okay. So, two things. One, I want to, again, just remind the public that we're having a groundbreaking for the senior center construction at noon this Thursday at the senior center site adjacent to Gus Canty. And I attended the Cape Coastal Conference hosted by Webner, Wacoit Bay Estuarine Research
Reserve.
You got it.
And there, we had three Falmouth presenters. Christine Lovely, our shellfish tech, Chuck, our shellfish constable, and Ray Jack were all among the presenters at the two-day conference. Great conference, focused largely on shellfish the first day and resiliency the second day.
I missed a comment in the Waterways Committee meeting also that David Vieira was helpful to the Eel River Waterways Foundation, and Glenn Schlegler was there at the meeting announcing that they did receive $30,000 in funding to do a study of that peninsula that's encroaching on the Wacoit Bay Yacht Club. If you're familiar with that, Washburn's Island is shoaling up right at the point where you're trying to get around that yacht club.
Right.
And it's really making a dangerous situation. And they've been working on this for like a few years, and they finally got some money to do a study and try to come up with a solution to hopefully maybe cutting off the end of that peninsula. I'd hope they would take the sand and put it back where it came from on the other side of the shore, but that's private property, and it's, you know, when you're gonna use public funds to do a project.
Right.
So we also need to maybe come up with an initiative, agenda item for initiative for asking our representatives to do some kind of new legislature that will maybe eliminate those borders between private and public lands as we look towards this coastal resiliency, because it's often a problem managing these areas.
Yeah, that's a complicated issue. It bears looking further into it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everyone good? All right, Mr. McConaty, thank you for staying till the very end. We're looking forward to a discussion about a follow-up letter to MassDOT regarding Palmer Ave.
Madam Chair, could I make a few introductory
Please.
comments? And then
Thank you.
welcome having Peter McConaty, our Deputy Public Works Director, join in. Just to confirm, following the Selectmen's lead in voting the policy on this proposed pedestrian crosswalk across Palmer Avenue to Goodwill Park, I was pleased to join with Peter McConaty and our town engineer Jim McLaughlin in a meeting with the MassDOT professional staff, at which the formal proposal, which had been developed by Peter, Jim, and others in Public Works, was further presented. That's a proposal that had been brought to the Selectmen with the concept of the pedestrian crossing, the location, the adjustment in the reduction in speed where that begins on Route 28, et cetera, et cetera. We had a very productive meeting. I know you have an email update on that. I do want to underscore, and I welcome Peter's supplementary comments. We had a very great, an excellent reception by the MassDOT professional staff, including their engineers and all those involved in the analysis. And they indicated a willingness to take this under advisement, to review it very seriously, and to get back to the town, as well as to the powers that be in Boston, related to the Department of Transportation on the consideration of what had been proposed. That having been said, I do want to also make a comment that we have had the experience of a number of individuals independently becoming involved in this project, some of them affiliated with one or more committees, some of them working independently. And unfortunately, and the board may be aware of this, there was a sort of a blast email went out recently, which confirmed in error that MassDOT had approved this concept. MassDOT has not approved this concept. And I know Peter can confirm that because we were there. They did indicate willingness to review it and received us very positively, and had very praiseworthy comments about the great work behind the scenes that have been done by Peter, Jim, and others in Public Works. And so I just wanted to underscore that and just to share with the board that there's a bit of a dilemma developing, that MassDOT has asked for the time to review this professionally, to do their work as they're committed to doing, and to get back to the town in the not-too-distant future. and they really need to have the time to do that. They asked us when we visited to be respectful of that professional process they undertake, to grant them that time and to give them the opportunity to go through the deliberations, including with their colleagues in Boston. And so I bring that up only to share with the board and with the public who might be watching how important it is to respect that process that MassDOT has. And I believe that as town manager, that a significant part of our positive response was because of the excellent working relationship that Peter McConerty, Ray Jack, Jim McLaughlin have with the professionals in MassDOT, and that and the excellent design and the research that went into their meticulous design for this proposal. So I only bring that up just as to request the assistance of all that are as anxious as we are, that we need to respect the process MassDOT has, and I'm appealing to all that might be watching or listening ultimately to work with us and allow MassDOT the time to do the kind of deliberative work they have to do and keep the positive relationship going. I just think it's critical at this point, and it's respectful of the manner in which MassDOT operates. And that having been said, I welcome Peter's comments and further elaboration. Certainly always welcome, Peter.
Great, thank you very much. Peter McConerty, Deputy Director of Public Works. I will take us to the point of where we are now. Before I do that, though, I'd just like to make a few more words as to what Mr. Suso had mentioned. Late last week, our office received a phone call from officials at DOT that were confused with the town of Falmouth and how we were progressing with this project, that we've done this type of work many times in the past, and there's a process to follow. And the way the emails came through to the DOT, to the higher-ups at the DOT, it came across to the officials that contacted us at Public Works that what's going on with Public Works? You guys have done this stuff in the past. What is going on? And what it did is it convoluted the situation, and it puts question with the DOT and their process of how they're working. And actually, it can jeopardize the project, too, as it moves forward. With that, when we did go up to the state with Julie and myself and the town engineer, we did have a good reception from the state. It was a full room. They were very interested in Palmer Ave because many of the people that were in the room travel Palmer Ave. A couple of them have houses, second houses on the island, and they get on to Woods Hole, so they travel that section of roadway. They know the section of roadway, they know the speeds, and they know what occurs down there during the week and during the summertime when it gets busy. So we did have a favorable response from them, and basically the way that we left it is that they were going to look at the section of roadway, they were going to look at the speed limits, and we were going to go back and complete our plans, finalize our plans, and we were going to start the process of submitting an application to the permits department to follow through with requesting from the DOT for the crosswalk and the curb cut. So what I can report on is, as of last week, I haven't had time to see it yet, but as of last week, we have heard from DOT that the speed limit signs have been changed. They have been pushed back further towards the highway.
So,
One of the reasons when we went up there and we were discussing is that we wanted to push it further up to the highway, is for the line of sight distance along Palmer Ave, but also pulling out of Palmer Ave where that section coming out where the water department is there. It's very dangerous, taking a right, never mind taking a left. There's been some major accidents there. So they did take it under consideration, and my understanding is they did move the signs, they did push the signs, speed limit signs back towards the highway.
They did.
So if that is correct, then that section of roadway now would be 35 miles an hour, which would allow a crosswalk to be considered in the area. So with Public Works, now it's in our hands, so we have to do finalize the plan, do they call it a TMP, it's a traffic maintenance plan for the state to show how we're going to be blocking the roads and do our work, and submit it to the state. They review it, they submit it to Boston. It takes several months. It's basically the same exact process that we did, well, similar process that we did over at Town Council's office when we put the flashing signals to cross the bike path. It's the same process. This time we'll be requesting to make the curb cuts and install a crosswalk. So once that gets submitted, they will review it, they'll send it into Boston, and then, sometime next year we'll be hearing, hopefully early next year, we'll be hearing back from them with a favorable result. But just to emphasize, though, what Julian has said, it is important that there is a procedure to follow with everything in DOT. And they can get concerned when they see things happen like that. And it actually doesn't put a good light on us in Falmouth. We've done it before, and, for them to be saying, what's going on here, doesn't look good for us, so.
We've heard about that with the Route 28 construction, that in the past, there's been so much confusion that it makes the state process slow down.
Right.
And so with, a lack of, folks kind of jumping in the middle of it, it looks like Falmouth doesn't have a coordinated approach, and we do.
Right.
Can I ask you a quick question on the proposed crosswalk location? Yep. Will there be sidewalks? For example, when you look at the crosswalk at Town Council, it literally connects the bike path with the bike path parking. So once the bikers are in the road where cars are supposed to be traveling, they're quickly off.
Yep.
Is that the case here? Because it looks like there's nowhere for them to go. It's kind of in the middle of the road versus the park access is to the right and the bikeway connection is to the left. Are there going to be sidewalks, or are bikers going to be on Route 28 for that distance?
But what we were trying to do is that section of roadway, it's about 800 to 900 feet. The straight section of roadway is about 800 to 900 feet long. What we tried to do was we're trying to look at putting the crosswalk right in the center of that, so you'd have adequate sight line distance on both sides. It might shift 15, 20 feet, 30 feet to one side or the other. The west side of the road does have sidewalks. They're not great sidewalks, but they do have sidewalks. The east side of the road does not have sidewalks. So what we'd be doing on our plan is we would be requesting to install curb cuts, the ADA ramps, the crosswalk itself, and then installing a sidewalk on the east side from the crosswalk to the nearest path going up into the park. And that path is the one more closest to the bottom of the playground there, right near the Crab Apples restaurant. I think that's the area, or the one
right
next up for that is the one we're looking at. So there might be, rough guess, there might be maybe 75, 100 feet of sidewalk that would be installing also on the east side, just so they would get across the road and then would have a sidewalk with a curb on it to get them down into the park and be able to go up the hill for the park.
Absolutely.
The choice of not putting it where the bike path makes a lot of sense, because the most dangerous thing about at the town council's office are the bikers who think, oh, it's a straight shot, I can just keep going.
Right.
And they don't pay attention to the fact that actually it's a very, very busy road, and they think, oh, that bike ahead of me went, I can just zoom in right behind them. And I think to have it be where it has to jog over to the side, then go across, and then we'll make it much safer for everybody.
Right, and one thing that, excuse me, real quick, most likely we will be installing some type of the rapid flashing beacons, the ones that were down there. Most likely we will be installing those rapid flashing beacons. There's two types of rapid flashing beacons you can purchase. You can install the ones that they're microwave, so they actually pick you up from 300, 400, 500 feet down the bike path. So they just turn. Right. So you don't stop on the bike path. We chose on this area down here at Town Council's office, we wanted the push button. Everywhere else in town has the push button. We wanted to get them used to using the push button. And what we'll do over here is the same thing. You have to stop, and it'll be push button, and then to cross the road.
Great.
So most likely they'll be looking, they'll be requesting. The DOT they're not crazy about those rapid flashing beacons, simply because there's a high cost to them for maintenance, and if they put them up all over the place, they can get expensive. So they usually will say to the town, if you want to put them in, they'll be yours, you can maintain them and install them. They definitely do work, they're safe, so they definitely do work.
Megan?
No, I was just gonna just concur that my law office is right before that, and I think if we didn't have the requirement that people at least stop, or, stop if they want to push the button to have a light, I think it would be a much more dangerous, if they just automatically saw that light going on because it picked them up.
Yeah.
Enough people already try and just breeze
Like the
across
hospital.
there. Yeah, so I think that's
Yeah, it's
great.
it's not a stop, they have different types of systems out there, but it is not a stoplight. Basically, it's a mid-block crossing, and you're just giving warning to pedestrians that,
No, I just mean the bikers have to stop to
Yeah,
push it. So
yeah.
at least that gives the bikers, it gives them an incentive to stop
To
and do
stop
that
before
and
they-
not just go through because they
Correct,
want that
yeah.
flashing light. So
Doug?
that's great.
How far back from the spur to the bike path is the crosswalk going to have to be, approximately?
I think in that corner there, that bike path spur comes right down next to, is it Johnson Homes or the medical building that they have?
Yeah, and it goes right across to Goodwill.
Yeah,
The reason I ask is with human nature being what it is, if it's too far, people will just cross where they've been crossing.
Except it's so hard to cross. I don't mean to jump in, but it's so hard to cross there
Yeah.
that I think having that ability to facilitate a crossing by using that crosswalk. I mean, people wait there for 15 minutes sometime, when that traffic is heavy, there's literally no window, even for the people who are somewhat risk takers and want to jolt across, there is just no, I think if it's there, I understand what you're saying, except that I think the other option is so difficult that I think they'll use it, but.
so the way, not to belabor it too long, but the way that the state looks, it's through that Mass DOT design guide. When you look at sight distances per speed limits, it tells you in a left or a right lane, if you're on the south or the east sidewalk, it tells you in what lane, how much sight distance you have to have. So wherever we fall into that category will judge us how close we can, there's a window that we can go in that area. We're gonna.
Not a matter of choice.
No, we're gonna make it as optimum as we can for the, for sight distance both ways. But if you are on the west sidewalk, there is a different distance coming from the north than there would be from the south. You can see further.
Yeah.
So, and
Right.
it's a little,
To maximize it.
yeah, you gotta kinda see it in the diagram to see how they're working, but there is actually a difference between the sight distance. So
Do you have a guess as to how far, or have you not yet done the?
we have a general area of it, as far as where it is to the spur. I'd probably say it's probably within 100 feet, 70 feet, so, and we'll try to, when we finish our plans and final our plans, we're gonna have to tighten that up.
Okay.
But with the state, they'll go through that too, and then they'll basically come back to us and say, this is what you have to follow. We've done that before, so I don't see a lot of problem with it, is if we get to this far, to be able to put the submittal in, and we have some pretty good contacts up there to work with to get it through.
Great.
And to Doug's point, someone coming to the bikeway connector, there'll be no place for them to go if they go across, because there'll be no crosswalk there. If they go down the 70, 100 feet, there'll be a crosswalk they can get to. If they go across right there, because they're gonna then be stuck with no place to walk or bike, and they're gonna be in the road. And so I think even if they really wanna go right away, they say, just move down 70 feet, cross the road, and then you're on the bike path, or you're on the sidewalk going up to Goodwill Park.
Yeah.
I think it's great, thank you. People have been asking for this for a long time.
Oh, I remember George Calise gave this to me in 2007 and said, this is one of your first projects you're gonna be starting with.
That's right.
That was,
I don't think
Good
you should advertise that.
presentation.
yeah,
But be patient.
Thanks
Yeah,
for,
but be patient, but it's more progress than we've had made on this issue in a long time, just to have the speed
And
limits moved.
don't slow down the project by needling the state. Just let them do their work.
yep.
Thanks for including that flasher, though, because the cell phones are such a distraction these days. You need something else to alert people.
Yeah, and that is a very, very, as everyone knows, a very busy traveled way, especially coming to and from the ships when the boats let off and
Slope.
get on, so,
Great. Thanks, Peter,
Good.
appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll take a motion.
Move we adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Carlson Printing for all your printing needs. 508-548-7303 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303. Our email address is carlsonprinting@aol.com. Carlson Printing for all your printing needs.